Chapter 1896. Despair and Glimmer of Light. That night, Xian Haixio and Li Qingmei were sleeping in the utility room, covered with several quilts given by Durakan. Although the environment here is not as good as their home, it is the best place for them to sleep in recent times. Suddenly, the door of the utility room was smashed with a bang. After everything that had happened during this period, the two of them were highly sensitive and woke up immediately. Durakan's voice came from outside. "The search team is coming. Get up quickly." Xian Haixio and Li Qingmei were startled and hurriedly got up to open the door. Durakan lowered his voice and said to them, "It seems that your identities are indeed extraordinary. The search team is here to find you." Xian Haixio and Li Qingmei hurriedly asked Durakan to help them, because they could see from Durakan's eyes that Durakan regretted taking them in. But now, if Durakan handed over the two men, he would also be punished. He whispered, "Come with me." He led the two to another room and opened the wooden door on the floor. There was a cellar here. "Just hide in here. Whether you can escape depends on your luck." It was freezing cold outside, but the two men could see a light passing through the window. It would be even more dangerous to go out, so they could only choose to trust Durakan. Even though they suspected that Durakan had betrayed them, did they have any choice now? The two entered the cellar and hugged each other in anxiety, but they could no longer fall asleep. 2 hours later, Durakan opened the cellar door and told them the good news. The search party has left. But it's not safe here anymore, and there will definitely be people searching nearby later. As soon as day breaks, they must head to the urban area of Hopu City. "Hey, I was so worried just for your exchange voucher. It's really not worth it." Durakan deliberately said this to Xian Haixio. He looked Xian Haixio up and down, wanting Xian Haixio to give him some more valuables. Xian Haixio could only pretend not to see it. If you give all the benefits to the other party at once, you may be abandoned by the other party. And so they waited with their eyes open until dawn. Durakan has a converted snowmobile, which is a pickup truck with wheels replaced with tracks. He stuffed two people into the back seat and covered them with a blanket. Durakan warned them that if they encountered someone checking on the road, they should not make any noise, and usually nothing would happen. As long as you pass this level, you will be safe when entering the urban area of Hopu City. The two were extremely worried. They had not expected that there would be so many dangers after crossing the border. But now we can only take one step at a time. The pickup truck drove towards the city, and after a few hours, the car suddenly stopped. There were several men shouting outside. Xian Haixio and Li Qingmei clasped their hands tightly together. They knew they were being inspected. But fortunately, Durakan knew the prosecutors and seemed to frequent the area. So the other party didn't get in the car to check and just let them pass. The car headed towards the urban area of Hopu City, and the two men finally felt relieved. Their hearts were bright, and they felt that as the wind blew and the grass and trees came to life, a better life was beckoning towards them. Before entering the city, Durakan reminded them, "This is already the city of Hopu City, but don't be too happy too soon. Your identities are very special. If the agents of KG want to arrest you, they can still do it. After all, this is Hopu City, the border between the two countries. The official personnel here have exchanges with the people of KG country." Xian Haixio's heart was lifted again. "I thought I had escaped from the KG kingdom, but unexpectedly, I still couldn't get rid of their shadow." He said, "As long as we find my uncle, he will protect us." Durakan took a puff of the cigarette given by Xian Haixio and said lightly, "Don't be happy too soon. Maybe they already know that you will come to find your uncle." Xian Haixio and Li Qingmei's hearts were like gourds in the water, ups and downs, lifted up and put down, their hearts wavering between hope and despair, and they were almost collapsing. Durakan sighed. "If I had known your problems were so troublesome, I shouldn't have agreed to help you." As he said that, he looked at Xian Haixio again. Xian Haixio knew what he wanted, but he didn't have any extra money to give him, so he could only repeatedly say that he would repay him after finding his uncle. Seeing that there was no profit to be made, Durakan had no choice but to give up. "How about this? When we get there, don't get off the car. I'll go over and ask for you." Although he didn't get more money, Durakin was still very conscientious. He did his job well when he was paid, and he was very principled. The car drove to the place where Xian Haixio's uncle lived according to his address. At this point, Xian Haixio finally understood why Durakin said that his uncle was a powerful person. Because the living environment here is obviously much better. Although it is just a wealthy area in a small border town in the Khotan Empire, it is actually better than the living conditions in Prisang. Xian Haixio and Li Qingmei hid in the car, and the car was not turned off. Durakin turned around and said to them before getting off the car, "I'm a local, I'll be fine. But if you find something wrong, drive away immediately. Drive south and meet up near the gas station we passed when we came here." The two nodded hurriedly and watched Durakin get off the car. He crossed the road and parked his car on the opposite side of the road, keeping a distance from the community so that it would be convenient for him to escape. Durakin entered the community, while Hyun Haesu and Lee Sungmi were waiting nervously. About 20 minutes later, Durakin came back. He got into the car quickly, but his face looked frighteningly ugly. "Are you sure the address is okay?" Durakin stared at Xian Haixio and started the car. "Yes, it's right here. That's it." Durakin took a deep breath. "You must have been exposed. They've sent people to wait nearby in advance, so when I went to find your uncle, the owner of that house said that he didn't have any nephew in Cage Country at all." Xian Haixio and Li Qingmei felt a chill in their hearts. Their last hope was completely cut off. If they can't go to their uncle, how can they survive in this place? There is a language barrier, and they are being hunted by the men sent by Commander Shan. Their chances of survival are slim. Xian Haixio was unwilling to give up. He grabbed Durakin's arm and said, "Please take me back. This time I want to see my uncle in person. He will definitely recognize me when he sees me." He even suspected that Durakin said this on purpose in order to get more money from him. "When the time comes, you will get no less benefits." Durakin was also a little angry. "Do you think I'm lying to you? Do you believe that as soon as you step into the entrance of that community, you'll be caught immediately?" Xian Haixio's eyes lost their light. Li Chengmei stroked his back to comfort him, but wasn't she also filled with despair at this moment? She looked at Durakin and begged bitterly, "Brother, can you help us? If you can't help us, then we have no choice but to die." Durakin's face was dark, and the car drove forward. After a while, he said impatiently, "There is only one last way to help you. You can go to a nearby church and say that you are a believer of the Junjing sect. Maybe the church can help you." Xian Haixio and Li Qingmei had no choice. Even if they had only a glimmer of hope now, they would regard it as a life-saving straw and hold on to it tightly. Durakin took them to the church near Hopu City, dropped the two people off, and then drove away. Before leaving, he said to the two of them, "I have figured out. The reason you were searched last night was because the woman you saw first reported you." After saying that, he drove away quickly, as if to get rid of the trouble. Xian Haixio and Li Chumei were filled with heavy hearts. They came to the church with their last hope and knocked on the church door. After a while, a priest opened the door. The two of them quickly told the priest that they were devout believers of the Junjing sect and hoped to receive the protection of the church. Unexpectedly, halfway through his words, the priest waved his hands at them impatiently. "Leave quickly. It's because of people like you that we have caused so much trouble. Go away, go away." The door of the church was also coldly closed to them. The young couple stood in front of the church door, snuggling together in the cold wind, and felt that the world was dark. "After going through so much trouble and finally escaping here, I thought I would have a new life, but this is the ending? Otherwise, just die. After death, everything is over." This thought arose in Xian Haixio's mind. This was the most helpless and desperate moment in his life. An evil thought even arose in his mind. Would it be better if I pretended not to know about the commander-in-chief and his wife and continued to stay in Prisang City? The moment the thought came to his mind, he shuddered, and then he saw Li Qingmei's concerned eyes. He raised his hand and slapped himself twice. "No, don't do this, Haixio. There will be a way. There must be a way to survive." Li Qingmei grabbed his arm desperately to stop his self-harming behavior. Is there any other solution? Xian Haixio said with a wry smile. Li Qingmei didn't say anything, but reached out and took out a gold ring from his pocket. That was what Xian Haixio bought when they got married with his meager savings. Although gold has depreciated severely today, it can still be exchanged for some food as an important industrial material. She handed the wedding ring to Xian Haixio and said, "Buy some food first. Then we'll think of a solution. Haixio, we will be fine. We will definitely be fine." With the comfort of his wife, although Xian Haixio was still desperate, his mood improved a little. The two people used their gold rings to exchange for 2 loaves of bread from a street bakery and found an abandoned house. They ate the bread while worrying about their future life. After this meal, they really had no money left. If you can't find a way out, you will definitely starve to death. Looking at her husband, who was emaciated due to worry, Li Qingmei was filled with grief. If only I had died at the beginning. She blamed herself in her heart. As long as she died, the commander would no longer embarrass her husband. It's all because of her. She made a decision in her heart, but did not tell Xian Haixio. That night, the 2 men slept in the dilapidated house, relying on their sleeping bags, thermal blankets, and plastic bags. The next day, Xian Haixio woke up early. But he suddenly found that his wife beside him had disappeared, leaving only a piece of text written by finger on the ground. "Honey, I'll try my uncle's house again. They may not recognize me, so don't worry about me." Xian Haixio's head exploded with a loud boom. He didn't expect that his wife's final thought would be the same as his. He also planned to go to his uncle alone without telling his wife. He didn't believe that his most beloved uncle would ignore him, but he also knew that such behavior entailed huge risks. There is a high possibility that he will be arrested and sent back to the country of Cage, where he will surely experience unimaginable hell. Qingmei, Qingmei. Xian Haixio got up from the ground in panic and ran towards his uncle's house like crazy. He already had a bad premonition in his heart, feeling that this time Qingmei left, she would never come back. He staggered and ran on the cold street. When he arrived near his uncle's neighborhood, his pupils suddenly contracted and the blood in his body flowed backwards, because he saw several very familiar faces walking out of the community. They were members of Chuizei's personal guard. Behind them, Qingmei had been handcuffed and arrested. Durakan did not lie to them. This place is indeed extremely dangerous. Xian Haixio's heart was completely chilled. He was not a powerful alien, and what's more, the opponents were all fierce and powerful fighters. Rushing forward at this time would be tantamount to seeking death. Xian Haixio, come on.
Come on. Come on.
Do you want to run away like a coward? Come on. Come on.
Come on.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. He desperately called on his body to move as quickly as possible, eager to get powerful strength to protect his woman. But when those people were taking Qingmei towards a car, a soldier raised his head and looked around. When his eyes turned to Xian Haixio, he subconsciously hid his body at the corner of the street. Xian Haixio's heart sank. It turns out that he is still afraid of death. He was afraid to return to Kaya, because he knew that no matter how close Commander Shan had been to him, this kind of thing could never be forgiven. He would rather die than go back. But do I have to watch Qingmei go back to hell? He had heard about the cruel methods of the guards, and Qingmei couldn't even die if she fell into their hands. Xian Haixio desperately covered his mouth, slowly curled up his body in a corner of the street, and tried to suppress his sobs. I don't know how long it took. He had become numb, but a faint light appeared in the sky. The sun is coming out. Li Qingmei has been taken away by those people. Xian Haixio stood up like a zombie. He suddenly felt that there was no place for him in this world anymore. Life was so tiring and painful. If I had known it would turn out like this, I would have chosen to commit suicide with Qingmei. After going through untold hardships, I finally escaped from the country of Cage and thought I had gained my freedom. As a result, they are still in prison.
Boom.
The sound of cars came to his ears. Xian Haixio looked to the end of the road. There were 5 very large and luxurious snowmobiles. They were pure white with golden junjing sect patterns on them. The obvious Golden Cross logo on the front of the car represented the prominent status of these people. Thinking of the scene where he and his wife were rejected by the church, Xian Haixio felt infinite disgust in his heart. Obviously, all they needed to do was give them a bite to eat to keep them both alive, so why was they so cruel? They are supposed to believe in God and save the world, right? Xian Haixio didn't want to live anymore, so he decided to stain the priests' cars with his own blood before he died. This is the last struggle of an incompetent little man. At this moment, his eyes were extremely ferocious. Facing the car coming from the distance, he used all his strength, as if to vent all the pain and despair in his heart, and rushed forward. The high-speed snowmobile soon arrived in front of Xian Haixio. Just when he thought he was going to die, a soft white light suddenly enveloped his body. It felt like hitting a thick sponge pad, without any pain. Plop. Xian Haixio fell on the snow. His eyes were lifeless. He slowly closed his eyes, thinking that it was just an illusion before death, and he was about to die. The convoy was forced to stop, and several clergymen got out of the cars and surrounded him. Suddenly, a clergyman said in a surprised tone, "Huh? Isn't this the wanted criminal from Cage?" Another clergyman said, "Sure enough, he has escaped here. Asian faces are quite rare here. What should we do? Should we hand him over to the people from Cage?" Xian Haixio wondered why he was not dead yet. At this time, the door of the middle snowmobile was opened. A pair of white leather boots stepped on the ground, and a beautiful nun in a robe walked out of the car. She was very tall, about 1.8 meters tall, and so thin that she looked like a statue sculpted by Michelangelo. Her slightly pointed oval face is beautiful and charming, with a look of compassion on her face. The people around quickly made way. "Sister Leibniz." The nun saw the man lying on the ground. A look of compassion appeared on her face. She clasped her hands together and recited 2 prayers. "May God bless this poor man and let him not have to endure pain, cold, and hunger," she said to the clergy around her. "Take him up." The nun gave the order, and the others naturally did not dare to disobey, so they helped Xian Haixio up. Only then did he realize that he was not injured. Confusedly, he was taken to the cathedral in Hopu City. The priest, who had originally treated him badly, also brought him hot water, bread, and blankets. A glimmer of hope suddenly arose in Xian Haixio's heart. Although he knew that this idea was a bit absurd, the other party was obviously a big shot of the world-renowned Junjing Church. If I could get her help, maybe I could save Chengmei. He ate with big mouthfuls of food, and for a moment he didn't feel so bad about dying. The temple next door. Brittany Leibniz, the mourning sister of the Regal Church and one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, completed her prayer to the cross of the Holy Spirit. She then used communications equipment to contact Cardinal Arnold Olive. "Sister Leibniz, how was your discussion with Commander Ken Shan in Cage Country?" Leibniz shook her head. "They refused to cooperate with us. If I guessed correctly, the thing we want to find, the Holy Seal Spear of Longinus, is in the hands of Commander Ken Shan. The reason why he was able to quickly grow from a junior officer to a powerful alien in a poor place like North Africa is because of the power of the Holy Seal. In this case, he can't hand the thing over to us." Olive frowned. "This is the situation we are most worried about. Although Commander Ken Shan is not a religious leader, in this poor and backward country in North Africa, he uses absolute power to brainwash all the people, making them blindly and absolutely loyal to worship Ken Shan, which also enables him to have the blessing of the power of faith. In this situation, as long as Commander Ken Shan does not leave the Kingdom of Cage, even the Knights Templar of the Junjing Church will not be able to snatch the Spear of Longinus from him. Of course, if we attack with a large army, there is indeed a chance to achieve our goal. However, the Junjing Church exists in the form of a religion. For thousands of years, the key to its harmonious coexistence with the secular world has been not to directly participate in secular wars. If this rule is broken, the attitude of countries around the world towards them will change from now on, which is something the Junjing Church does not want to see. It was for this reason that he traveled thousands of miles to find Zhang Yi, hoping that this world-class strong man who is outside the political power would carry out this mission. Just looking at Zhang Yi's attitude, he is obviously not willing to get involved in this trouble. Just when Olive was feeling melancholy, Sister Leibniz's lips suddenly curled up into a smile, beautiful and moving, without causing anyone to have any bad thoughts. The day of fall has not yet arrived, and Mammon, the sin of greed, has been born ahead of time. It is a crisis, but also the best opportunity. If we conceal it again in advance, the risk of world destruction will be reduced. There is no room for hesitation on this matter. What we need is a legitimate reason to take the spear of Longinus from Ken Shan. She smiled meaningfully and said, I have a very good idea now. It will not let the Junjing sect fall into the disputes of the secular world, and it can reasonably get the spear of Longinus. And his target is also those couples. There was no problem with Xian Haixio and Li Qingmei's identity documents, and they passed the inspection smoothly. They went through this kind of examination 3 times in total, and their hearts were almost in their throats. After the inspection, the two agreed to leave the train station one after the other, walk all the way north, and meet again in a deserted place. The emperor is far away, and the north is a very poor and backward place called Cage. When Cui Zhe's orders came here, it was difficult to ensure their execution. After all, it is difficult for civil servants in such remote areas to have enough food on weekdays. They are all hungry and look pale and thin, with deep sunken faces. Dear viewers, thanks for staying with me. We'll try to get you more updates. Please like and subscribe and share the video with your friends. Love you all.